Hello, everybody. Welcome to Battle Report number 1 of the Warhammer Youtuber World Tour. So this is not only the first battle report of the World Tour, but also of me personally. So expect a totally awful battle report, but hopefully I'll be able to at least communicate what happened during these games. So for those of you who followed my adventures, thank you very much. But for those of you who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, I drove around the country for about 10 days, put more than 4,000 miles on my wife's car, which I'm sure she was thrilled about. And I played a lot of different YouTuber content producers. And my first stop on the world tour when I left out of Ohio was the wonderful, bright, sunny land of New Jersey, where I played Anthony from the Sustainable Center. And here I am arriving at Ant's house. You can see him there with the glass of scotch all ready to go. Very, very friendly, very nice welcome there, I thought. So that was very nice. So I asked him what he wanted me to play, and that was the deal with everybody. So I brought about 6,000 or 7,000 points of all the armies I brought. And the 3 armies that I took with me were Tomb Kings, Skaven, and Bretonnia. And basically the deal was, you pick the army you want to play against, and I will pick the list. I had some lists made, some I generated on the fly, which results in horrendously hilarious mistakes that will come in later battle reports that you may have already seen in the other people who battle reported some of this stuff out. But we'll get to those as they happen. But here's the nice arrival in New Jersey. As you can see, it's a beautiful blue day, which is always fun, always super gray. And so he picked Skaven. Now, he was testing out his Swedish list. I think he comped at like a 10.7 or something like that, if memory serves. And I'll kind of try to talk about what's on his side and my side and so on and so forth. I didn't do any individual unit pictures or anything. But he said, make a Skaven list. And so I thought, well, I want to do something that's not super hard. If he's a Swedish 10-7, that's, pretty middle of the road. So I picked something fairly middle of the road as well. So on my side, what do we got? We have 2 rat packs on the outside there. We can see the 2 warp lightning cannons in the back. We got 2 packs of 50-ish slaves. Got a pack of 40 storm vermin along with a warlord on the war litter. Standard chieftain BSB in there. You got 2 warlock engineers, 1 in each of the slave units. And then, of course, you've got the big Vermin Lord. There he is in the center of the board. That is the Vermin Lord Deceiver. He's the little Clan Eshin guy, so he can skitter leap himself around and such. And he can be all sneaky deaky. And he is also the only one with a ranged attack, which I thought was pretty good against Wood Elves. For those of you unfamiliar with the Deceiver, he has a really interesting range attack that has a property called Arcing Death, where basically you get 1 attack for every model in the front rank of a unit. Given Wood Elves being small units and going wide on frontage, seemed like a pretty good deal. So this picture is actually after Vanguard, because right out of the gate, I'm lazy. What you can't see in this picture is off to the far left is my Doom Wheel, and off to the far right is my Hell Pit. The Hell Pit's over on the other side of that little house on the right side. So what does Ant have? Okay, so on his outsides, we've got 2 packs of Wild Riders. Then we have 2 packs of Waystalkers, Way Watchers. He does not have Waystalkers in them. So those are just Way Watchers. And then there are 3 units of Glade Guard, 2 of which had Hagbane, and 1 of which had the mega bad for me kill, destruction, flaming, +1 to wound arrows. So no less bueno there for the Hell Pit. So he's way over to the side behind that house to try to hopefully protect him, since, the nice part is they may have +1 to wound, but they don't, it's not like they're true flights or hitting on a 3-up, so he's got to heat cover and range and all that stuff. So hopefully we were just trying to minimize the chances he could actually do any damage to the Hell Pit. Behind that, he has a big old Sisters of the Thorn bunker with his BSB in there, as well as a level 4 sorceress. And the owl, the white snowy owl you see there, is actually Nastra and Arahan, I think is their names. The 2 special characters from the Wood Elf book, and they are on their great eagle, represented by the owl here. We weren't sure how. I think there's some rules confusion over how to do the two of them because I think they technically become monstrous cavalry when they mount that thing, which would mean they actually have like some kind of weird unified profile. But then at the same time, they have other rules about individually targeting them and what happens if one dies but the other doesn't in a phase. They both pop back up and all sorts of strange things. And what happens when their eagle dies? It talks about all of this, but that shouldn't really be possible if they're monstrous cavalry. But if anybody knows where the FAQ is on that, or if I have it horribly wrong, hey, feel free to put the comments below. I would love to know the answer to that. That would be fantastic. So this is after Vanguard, and top of one goes to the Wood Elves. Boo hiss for all their shooting to go ahead and try to tear me up. Not excited about that. So you can see when he vanguarded, he kind of shifted his Wild Riders around here, and there's my Hell Pit. There's this guy down here. You can also see some gutters off to the side. They're not actually there. They're kind of off the board to remind me to bring them in. There's 2 units of gutters back there in ambush. So, Wild Riders over here. And then you can kind of see the Doom Wheel over on the left. Wild Riders over here. Just more Vanguard stuff. And then center of the board for him. So, as I said, top one is him. He shoots. His first order of business is to clear out some chaff. He doesn't want me directing his frenzied Wild Riders off into an easy flank charge with the Hell Pit or something like that, or just getting them out of the combat. So he puts some shots in and hilariously only kills, it'd be 1 rat and the Packmaster, but they flee away. So they're gone, certainly. Nice little leadership 3, and outside the bubble, they're probably not rallying. Some more shots over here kill the Packmaster and a rat on this rat pack. However, they do happen to be within general range because he's right here in the Storm Vermin, and they actually stick on just basic leadership 7 that he's broadcasting out. So good fun there. Still, they're going to start running toward the nearest enemy, of course, now that they don't have their Packmaster, but they're still alive. All right, and that was pretty much his turn. No movement. He just did some shooting. My turn. So you can see here, this is after, this is a little ways into my turn. I've moved some units up. My Vermin Lord has just kind of snuck over here behind walked over this hill and hid behind it, where he can take some cover. Don't want him getting shot at. He does have 1 wound there, as there was some shots thrown at him, but it only managed to result in 1 wound. He is pretty tough, and even though he's got a little 5-up ward, nothing too amazing, but enough that it's hard to wound him. Still don't want those Hagbane going into him, obviously. Those are death if he gets at a close range and they're able to open up. So as you can see, the Rat Pack continued to flee and ran right off the board. Nothing too surprising there. No one else really cared about that, and life goes on. I didn't want to march the Hell Pit into easy flank by the Wild Riders. I know how destructive those guys are, so I decided to just bounce him off the house. So you can see that's what he did. He just kind of turned toward the house and rolled some distance. Who cares? He just kind of bounces off and ends up right there. The Slaves and the Stormburn all move up. That's what you can see here. Over here. So the Doom Wheel kind of moves up a little, and I do some shooting. Nothing much happens. Honestly, my first turn was a complete waste of time. I did manage to get this Wild Rider unit down to 2 models, and this is actually the beginning of turn 2 for Ant. So with his 2 Wild Riders, he charges into my Doom Wheel, my unwounded Doom Wheel that had moved up all of, 7 inches. Other than thinning down the 2 Wild Rider packs, I really didn't accomplish anything. He shut down my magic phase. My shooting was other than thinning these 2 packs, largely ineffective. Now, these 2 charged in, and, Wild Riders are destructive, but this thing is, T6, and, it's got a 4-up armor, and it's going to grind at the start of combat at strength 6, so I felt pretty good about its chances. We'll see how that works out. Other than that, he kind of moves up his Way Watchers a little bit, just shimmies them around. As you can see, he's not really moving too much. So, let's go to combat. So here we can see the results of armor saves and my attacks. So here's what happened. I grinded. I got 1 grind. I did manage to kill one of the Wild Riders with the grind. Then he attacked me. He did 1 wound. Fair enough. Out of all the attacks that they do. And then here are my here are my roll for my rats inside, which promptly rolled Snake Eyes, which was very much appreciated out of their 2d6 attacks, being that it's not too hard to kill T3 elves with basically a t-shirt on. And I failed to wound with any of that. Meaning I did 1 wound, he had 1 wound and a charge, and he breaks the Doom Wheel and runs it down. His other wild, so that was a very ignoble end to the Doom Wheel. Then we come over here on my next turn, and I move the Hell Pit out. And I guess actually this is somehow I skipped my turn. It's good picture taking in the first battle report, so I apologize. So here's what happened. I'll catch it up here. My Hell Pit moved out once I had thinned these Wild Riders down again. And my Vermin Lord came over here. You can see my Gutters came on the board, so that was very nice. And he decides to charge my Hell Pit with the 1 Wild Rider, seeing in the flank. Seeing how good the other one did, he was kind of hoping for a miracle. And there's my other Gutter Runners coming on in the back. So there's that group. And you can see here they came on, they thinned out those Glade Guard, and Ant on his turn bravely charges Way Watchers. And he bravely charges these Way Watchers into my Gutter Runners after they had thinned them down some. And you can see my Slave group just kind of moving up, threatening a little pincer maneuver there. Here's a little better overview of the board. I promise as we go along here, I'll get some better picture taking and remembering to actually take pictures, although I make no great promises. So, moving up boldly with the slaves, because honestly, I am not afraid of anything over there with either of those slave units. Anything he wants to throw into me, I am more than happy to throw slaves into. Those are like packs of 10 or 12 elves. Yeah, they're ASF, but they're basically guys who barely know how to use their swords, and I've got the bodies to just overwhelm them and drag them down. In that war of attrition, I mean, I'm going to win that in the long run. So, the Storm Vermin have sort of reformed up as he has been putting all of his shooting from his Glade Guard into the Storm Vermin, just thinning them down. So I've slowly had to reform to keep ranks, because we don't want to lose that, obviously. Go back here, you can see some more shooting. We did manage to pick off the remaining Wild Rider with one of the Warp Lightning Cannons. That was a truly sad use of that, but we managed to get that one who had killed the Doom Wheel, so that was some vengeance. This was the result of the combat. As you can see, the Gutters took no wounds. They had managed to, there's my ward saves, those double 6s right there, so that was pretty nice. They dodge out of the way of any sneaky Way Watcher blows. And I kill Ant down to 1 Way Watcher who promptly rolls what you see on the white dice, which is what he needed to stick, or something approximating that. And he stays on Insane Courage, which was hilarious, but not really that game-breaking. But it's funny that that guy is very brave. Back here to the center of the board, you can see his other Way Watchers are kind of moving around. My units are up here. You can see my Hell Pit he did manage to do 2 wounds with the Wild Rider to my Hell Pit. Very deadly guys there, those Wild Riders. However, of course, the Hell Pit then promptly stomped that 1 Wild Rider into the mud, and then turns around to hopefully get into those Way Watchers up there. Meanwhile, the Gutters are kind of starting up a little shooting war with the Way Watchers. So, this then started a hilarious situation. So, as you can see up here, I'm sorry for the angle of the picture here, but you can see up here that he has a Shadow Dancer, whatever the character is out of the Dancy Elves. And he was sort of trying to chaff up my unit here with this guy. And he had also put Curse of Honor here on my Storm Vermin. I wanted to get them up into combat because I figured my Warlord and my Chieftain and everything else I have here, the characters alone, will basically handle all of the Glade Guard, any Glade Guard they can get into. So getting them up there in a combat and getting them reformed to where then I'd have an easy charge was something I was very inclined to do. So I was willing to risk the Curse of Honor here and just say, hey, you know, I'm going to take some damage. Statistically, I should be okay. But that was stupid. Because what happened is I charged, failed an inordinately large number of those dangerous terrain tests, made the charge, but failed an inordinately large number of those dangerous terrain tests, and then promptly rolled a 10 and a 10 on my rerollable 8 panic test from taking wounds on the spell, and then turned and fled from the charge, because he's now only like leadership 8 from only having 1 rank behind him there. So that was less than great, as my Storm Vermin are now also, which means they test for Curse again, and they run away. This is just showing that my Gutter Runners finished them off, that one remaining Waystalker, and they are now kind of getting into position. On his turn, he Swift Reforms and turns these Glade Guard to face my Gutter Runners to try to get rid of them. Slaves are still kind of moving up. Basically, we're looking to get around here. Swing this big slave bus around. He also boldly charges my... so what happened is, after my Storm Vermin failed so miserably, I just went ahead and took the slave unit into the Shadow Dancer, which meant that they had this big fat wheel, and they spun around, but they were fine. And they did not manage to kill him, because he was in his 3-up ward dance. They did do 1 wound to him, but they beat him, and they had to, and I was like, I'm not letting this little guy get away, so I chased him down. And when I chased him down, that puts his Glade Guard here in a very easy charge into the side of my slaves, which he just couldn't resist, and so he brings his Glade Guard into the flank of my slaves. So there's a little overview of that. You can see that the Help Hit failed terribly at going anywhere. I don't remember what he rolled. It was probably a 6 or something. We did manage to finish off the Way Watchers over here, exempting 1 guy. Very, very common theme here of leaving 1 Way Watcher alive, and you can see he's now currently trying to chaff up my Help Hit, although he can't get close enough to stop me where he is, because I can still pivot out of the way. He's not actually railroading me, he's just trying to stop me. The Gutter Runners move up, and the Vermin Lord is kind of slowly moving up using these other things as cover. He's just trying to play the long game here. The Vermin Lord is mostly on Plague, because I thought things like Plague itself and Cloud of Corruption would be very useful against a bunch of small units of Elves. And this guy and his ability to get around the board so easily and survive means that he actually might use some of those spells. You can also see my now greatly reduced Storm Vermin, now definitely below 25%, with the Warlord and BSB fleeing off the board. So that's always great. Always a fun time to have that. You know, those aren't important tools in the Skaven arsenal at all. This is me shooting down their turn this way, because this turn they had shot down the Wild Rider, who's over here out of frame, and you can see my Gutters running forward, inevitably running toward their giving up their points off the board. And that is a shot of, I have no idea, but it's another shot of that turn, just so you can see where they're going. He's carrying 1 more wound now from an errant, probably from the Way Watchers. There's that combat. And you can see there, he managed to kill not enough slaves, and I killed some Elves. And the funny part here is, he hit me in the flank, didn't do enough wounds. Now, they've, just kind of didn't do great. And I managed to kill 3 Elves back. I still lost the combat. I'm testing on leadership, I don't know, let's say 5. Yeah, 5, because there is still a Warlock Engineer in there who is out of combat, because I don't have any ranks at that point for my bonus, since I'm charged in the flank. And not only do I not break or flee on leadership 5, I stick and manage to make the 5 check to turn and face, which will bring me back into actually being able to use my parry save, because that's right, I gave these slaves shields. And also meaning that this is now a foregone conclusion that these slaves will beat these Glade Guard, because now he's got all of, let's say, 9 or 10 bodies against my 40-plus bodies, and I'm in the front, and he's got no one who can come help him. So 2 leadership 5 checks. These slaves, men of the match, or rats of the match, as it were. Let me just say that. So here we are still just kind of moving up and around. He thins out my Gutters, but they make their panic check and stick. That's appreciated. Here's this. You can see here he shot down and thinned out these Gutter Runners. There's now 1 Gutter Runner left. But he's alive and makes his panic check as well. Lots of successful. The sub header for this particular game is I can't roll for hit or wound or anything. Like, I am missing hits and wounds like crazy. I'm duffing. But on leadership tests, I am stellar. The key is I'm rolling low on everything, which means I suck at hitting and wounding, but I am fantastic at leadership. Like, no, these are the most bold Skaven that have ever taken the field. Here we go to a little overview. As you can see, the help hit just kind of turns and walks by that guy and once again fails short, being a total waste. The Vermin Lord moves up behind because now he's in a good range to do a nice little Cloud of Corruption or something similar. There's the slaves continuing to fight. Storm Vermin continuing to flee, not quite off the board. You can see we do a little shifting here in the movement phase. These gutter runners run around here to preserve their points behind the house. Slaves swing way up and around, kind of pointing at them and just, threatening them. They're saying, hey, we're leadership 8. They still have an engineer, but that guy will probably be killed very quickly. So they're leadership 5. Come at me, bro. They're not afraid. And then we decide to have the great duel of the fates here between my one remaining gutter runner and this one remaining way watcher. Both of them struggling desperately to try to maintain their points. Just a little shot of that. And so here's what happens. On his turn, he brings his sister bus way down here and around. You can see, as predicted, my slaves now absolutely take that Glade Guard to the house. His Way Watchers do in fact come at my slaves, charge them, beat them, and blow them up. As sadly, those guys were not able to make such a great Leadership 5 test. So that slave unit is lost, and those gutter runners are now scared and exposed. The help hit, you'll notice, strangely missing, because Ant managed to get off a nice little pit of shades and suck him right down the hole, which was, I would say, not as great. I was not as pleased about that one. Gutter runners move up here and go to town, and you'll notice what happened to all those sisters. It's a much smaller unit now. That is because on the last turn, my Vermin Lord moved into position and did a big old cloud, and I rolled 6, the maximum sort of on this unit, and Ant managed to spectacularly fail something like 4 or 5 out of the 6, everything wounded. And then he managed to fail 4 or 5 of the 4 up ward saves, which was very much appreciated. And that left not enough for him to get his lookout sir anymore, so now we start trying to drill down characters. Because everybody left in this unit now is a unique little snowflake. You've got one regular sister, one the champion, and then the standard bearer and her in there. His caster, who you can see back up there. Everybody's carrying some wounds. You can see the Vermin Lord is up there after his very successful cloud. Didn't affect any of my own units, so that was great. These slaves right here that had fled after sort of they had beat the Way Watchers and then basically gotten sort of charged by something else, or they'd beaten the Glade Guard, I'm sorry, and then broke. They go ahead and rally on a 3. Way to go, guys. Exactly what they needed. Leadership 2 with their musician. I'm telling you, these boldest Skaven ever, they were just tactically withdrawing from the situation. And that right there is pretty much the end of the game. I rally the Skaven, the Storm Vermin had run off. I put everything into the sisters. The gutters are still alive. They had just run around over here to hide. This combat between the one remaining Way Watcher and one remaining Shadow or Waystalker and my Gutter Runner ends with a victory for me because he had died to Cloud of Corruption, but then his Way Watchers shoot down my last remaining Gutter Runner. So at the end of the game, I have one of my Warp Lightning Cannons left, as the other one had nicely blown itself up, which was, thanks for that. And my big Vermin Lord and a unit of slaves. And that is pretty much what I've got left. A lot of points sitting in that Vermin Lord. Ant has 2 units of Glade Guard left, as well as that unit there. His sisters. Oh, and I also have my Gutter Runner unit left. So when we initially totaled it up, it looked like actually a minor victory for me, just because of what he had lost and what I was getting half points for, given the size of the sisters unit. And then we remembered that Nestra and Arahan, whatever their names are, they are still alive. Like, I know you didn't see them at all. That's because in the first round I did trace the Warp Lightning Cannon off over them, or second round, and blew their eagle away. But then the 2 of them just sneakily hung out in this Glade Guard unit for the whole time. They're actually the ones who beat up my slave unit so bad that it fled and exploded. And we remembered they were still alive, and that made it maybe like a 270-point victory for Ant or something in that realm. I don't remember exactly, but somewhere in the 200 to 300-point range victory for him. So, victory to Ant, minor victory, probably like a solid 12-8, but I'll take it. The dice weren't exactly in my favor that game as far as rolling to hit or wound. Couldn't really get anything off. That being said, nothing away. That's to take nothing away from Ant's play, which was top notch the entire time. Obviously, if you get to play against the Sustainable Center, of course you should do that. He's a fantastic player. His Wood Elves are a lot of fun to play against. Yes, they're kind of avoidy, but honestly, there was a lot of guys on foot there. It was a very tactical match with a lot of us carefully moving around and trying to set up lots of counter charges. I do wish I hadn't been a moron with my Storm Vermin. I probably just should have sat them still and let them get shot again. It certainly would have been better than the situation as it occurred there. But hey, hindsight is something like 2020. So there you go. In the final round, by the way, the Vermin Lord had moved there and popped off another big cloud or plague or maybe both. And literally it did nothing. I got nothing off, did about no wounds, picked up no units. So that was very sad. I put a lot into, traced a Warp Lightning Cannon over those sisters, put all the Gutter Runner shots into them, and all of that being said, he made every 4-up ward, because everybody in there has some kind of 4-up ward. And in the final round, he manages to preserve all those points by not missing a word save, which I suppose was payback for missing 5 out of the 6 in the round before. And that was pretty much it.